Today, we're looking at a brown ink by Atramentis. We're looking at Casanova Sepia Brown. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, there's timestamps down below so that you can skip around, but if you got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. Also, if you're interested, you can follow me on Instagram, and if you're new here, I would invite you to subscribe. In order to make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put the ink into this Kaweco Brass Sport with a broad nib. I used it to write for a day and to take my notes for this video. This first writing sample is done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. Additional papers will show up later. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form, so it came in a vial like this. And to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. Now the extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub. With no feather spread, halo sheen, it does offer some shading throughout, like the starts lighter, gets darker. Quick starts lighter, gets darker. Brown goes from dark to light. It's very nice stuff. 11 seconds to dry. Medium is a bit darker than the extra fine, nowhere near as dark as the stub. No feather spread, halo sheen, it still does offer some shading, like Fox starts a little lighter, gets darker, brown goes from dark to lighter to darker. 17 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both shows plenty of color variation looking far left to far right, and we get it. Tomoe River. No bleeding, lots of Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 15 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, about the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 25 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both shows no color variation because there is none. And Rhodia. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, and it again is still offering some shading spots. Brown starts dark and works its way light. Fox starts very dark on the left side of the F, goes lighter and very dark into the X. So it can do it. 12 seconds to dry. Medium is about the same tone as the extra fine, maybe a hair darker, with no feather spread, halo sheen, spots of shading. Like the middle of the end of the Q into the U is lighter than the rest of the word. O and the top of the E is a bit lighter than the rest of the word. There's spots, but not a ton. The X in Fox looks a little darker than the rest of the word. 19 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both far left to far right does show some color variation, and we do get some in the writing. I agree with Vita that we learn a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see this very gray at the bottom. And it pushes its way up pretty uniformly. It looks like it's a green leaning gray, if that makes some sense. It's like having different tone leaning browns, but it's like a green leaning gray. It pushes its way up into a brighter red. Now, being a green leaning gray would make sense because we're making a brown. The one on the right I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water, and that green leaning gray, a little more obvious, a little more there. It's going to be the permanent aspect. The red is performing the same as it did before, but that line across the bottom, very there. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page and how hard it may be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before I test it. Looking at the highlighter, I go straight to the lowercase h. Now, I know it's the red that's moving, but I don't want that kind of blowout and blurriness in my notes, so I wouldn't use it in a note-taking situation if I need to go back and highlight. water is reactivating and lifting, but only the red, not all of those greenish grays that we saw in the bottom of the second chromatography. Same problems going on with pen flush. It's not getting that all out of there. It's really bonding and staying on the paper. 1/3 bleach solution is completely removing it, but it's leaving a very sepia brown in its place as a stain from the 1/3 bleach solution. Now, I did not need to use 1/3 bleach solution to get this out of my pen. I didn't have to go that far. The pen flush did do it. Paper's not the same as the plastic inside the pens. I test viscosity or flow with a tilt test that I'll link the video on how I do that. Now, for the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. The Atramentis Sepia Brown has a viscosity of 2.31, making it normal. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. I average those. Now for the inks I've tested, I have found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. The Atramentis Sepia Brown has an average dry time of 17 seconds, making it not just normal, but average. Instead of finding inks that look like the Atramentis Sepia Brown, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. But I wanted to go with a nice purple, and I chose Diamine's Tyrian Purple. The second writing sample is done on Life, Levenger, and Franklin Christoph paper. Here we're looking at Life paper. Now we get no bleeding and no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 9 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, just a hair lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 14 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show no color variation because there is none. And Levenger, no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 8 seconds to dry. Medium is quite a bit darker than the extra fine, about the same tone as the stub. No feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, and 11 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both shows no color variation because there is none. Last up, Franklin Christoph paper with no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 5 seconds to dry. Medium is quite a bit darker than the extra fine, same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 8 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both shows no color variation because we didn't get any, and that is all that we have for the writing sample. So what do I think of Atramentis Casanova Sepia Brown? It's easy to have too much ink on the page, leaving it too dark and not really nice looking, which is weird when it goes with Casanova. Now, if you use less ink, so your drier pens, you can get a rather pleasant brown tone. So what nib and pen would I choose to get the best writing experience from this ink? Definitely not a wet pen. The brown that goes down is kind of gross to look at, but on a medium to dry flow pen, the brown becomes much nicer to look at, especially a dry fine. I do new ink reviews every single day, so if you're new here, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching.